What's happening? Alright, I'm doing me a little homework experiment for Dale. And he gave me some words to look up. And I'm gonna look these up here. And the first one is society. And the aggregate of people living together in a more or less ordered community. Drugs, crime, and other dangers like democide are dangers to society. Democide, drugs, and crime, and other dangers to society. And when you say society, you gotta say it's society. Because it's so much more important than the individual. An organization or club formed in a particular purpose or activity. So, secret society, those are like fraternal orders and frickin' the chess club at school. It's just a club or a group that there's some of them are exclusive. Some you got to pay to get in. Some you got to do acts of obedience and adoration to the. You got to put in some. You got to put in some work for the pyramid scheme for it to keep working. Basically, so. And like the Indians, the natives, man. It's called the Medaween Society. For instance, they're religious. It's a religious society or organization. A community or group of people having common traditions, institutions, and interests. Medieval society, Western society. Let me look at this one right here. Look, I like it. See, you got to get a second opinion. I mean, there's many ways you can define something and them all be correct. But there is a more cut and dry, straight, cut to the chase, straight to the punch type of a way to do it as well. And then there's you can cut the fat or you can give them the fat. Either way, they can do with the fat what they want. In other words, what I mean. Okay? Now I see exactly how you told me to look up aggregate. That was only one definition. This other one's different. Societies, secret societies. Definition of society: companionship or association with one's fellows, friendly or intimate intercourse, company. I mean, that was a strange articulation there, that number one. A voluntary association of individuals for common ends. So in order for you to be society, it's got to be voluntary. So you shouldn't be able to be coerced into society, but society is coercion. It's so freaking, that is so word salad-ish right there. Especially an organized group working together, periodically meeting because of common interests, beliefs, or profession. Most of the time it's probably common interests, because that's the reason why people join gangs, fraternities, in these societies, because there's membership perks. Different societies, different perks. For instance, the Rosicrucians have a lot of secret mystery religion knowledge. So if you want to go, if that's, float your freaking boat, you just go pay the fee. And that way, if you just pay, you don't have to spit on the cross or not spit on the cross. You just get to, supposedly, so I've heard. I'm not a member. A voluntary association with individuals for common ends, especially an organized group working together periodically because of common interests, beliefs, or profession. An enduring and cooperating social group whose members have developed and organized patterns of relationships through their interaction with one another. A community, a nation, a broad grouping of people having common traditions, institutions, and collective activities and interests. A part of community that is a unit distinguishable by particular aims or standards of living or conduct. A social circle or a group of social circles having clearly marked identity. A part of the community that sets itself apart as a leisure class that regards itself as an arbiter of fashion and manners. A natural group of plants using of a single species or habitation with an association. So plants also live in a society. The progeny of a pair of insects when constituting a social unit, such as a hive of bees. Okay, so a bee society. broadly an interdependent system of organisms or biological units. So yeah, that is the forest, and that's the forest, not the trees, buddy. That last one, broadly. Gosh, it just keeps going. Society as an adjective relating to or typical of fashionable society. Synonyms for society: noun, association, board, brotherhood, chamber, club, colleague, college, congress, consortium, council, fellowship, fraternity, guild. That's with a U and also with an I. Institute, institution, league, order, organization, like New World Order, organization, solidarity. Sodality. Sodality. Solidity? Sodality. Okay. Examples of society in a sentence. Why not? Why not? We're just going to go all in. We're going to go ahead and go all the way in. Examples of a society in a sentence. Poverty hurts society as a whole. Poverty hurts your society whole. We need to do more to help the poor members of our society. I mean, look, see that right there? By seeming to be pious, we need to do more to help the poorer members of our society. But at the same time, that's the dump on the poor. Even though you're acknowledging it, but it could be used that way as a way to dump on somebody, but like to humiliation ritual before you help them. So it's like, we're gonna make you pay for this by making you, like, painting you out to be this big time charity case. So I look so good. So society looks so good for helping these poor paupers out. Yeah, I mean, they never let a good crisis go to waste. You know what I mean? Your crisis is their opportunity to exploit it. Okay, it's time to move along to the next word here, and we're gonna look up this word called aggregate. I hope you like it, Dale. I'm trying to get Dale to make his own video content too. It'd be beneficial to him. I keep telling him. He ain't got on board with it yet. He's just doing the shares and the watching what everybody else is doing. That's okay. I can't tell him how to live. It's like, look, we all got our own aptitudes and our niches. Okay. And so, in other words, our skill sets might make us more suited for an alternate pursuit, but it's, in the end, we're trying to accomplish the same freaking result anyway. So it's like, look, waking people up. Also get ourselves taught up in the things we need to know in the process. You dig? It's beneficial for us all. Okay. This word right here, aggregate. Listen, the reason I know this word already, I used to work with this guy, and he would say that word aggregate all the time. That aggregate is slick. He would almost like NLP say the word aggregate, like, look, because it sounds more sophisticated, more intellectual, right? But a shingle is made of aggregate, and basically that's a bunch of small pieces of, like, basically like blacktop and fiberglass, and it's put in a freaking some kind of a tar, and then it's like pressed and I'd imagine cooked. I'm not sure exactly how they're made, but it's something like that. I've worked with them, and certainly they are aggregate. And even look, there's another word I'm going to look up. It's called fractal. I realize aggregate and fractal are related. I wouldn't even be surprised if fractal doesn't pop up in the synonym. But anyway, it's like when you get a bag of shingles, right? So they come in together, but they're looped into clumps, but they still come in together. That is aggregate. They're loosely fitted together as they're stored on the roof. But then after you rip each package open individually, they are taken apart one individual, you lay one down, and then another one is laid next to it, and then another one next to it, and so forth, and then you layer up above it. So it starts off as one loosely connected unit to integrated. By the time it's done, it goes back into one whole unit that's totally interlinked, interconnected, and it actually is one. You need it to become one solid barrier, even though it's composed of many separate fractional parts. And they're part of the shingles, even though there's particular shingle, but they're all still shingles. And in the end, it's almost as if it's one unit, even though it's composed and compartmentally of many smaller variants of the same unit, but they're just fitted together to cover all the surface area. It's a shingale aggregate, a whole formed by combining several typically disparate elements. See, I don't know what this word right here is. Watch. I'm going to write this down. Disparate. Looks like parasite. Pirate. Parasite pirates. Arr. The council was an aggregate of 3 regional assemblies. Ooh, look. See definitions in sport, botany, economics. So, man, there's subcategories, I guess, of definitions, depending on what the context you're using it in. Interesting, very interesting. I like that. A material or structure formed from a loosely compacted mass of fragments or particles. The specimen is an aggregate of rock and mineral fragments. That's what I use to describe to Dale what aggregate is. I goes, okay, if you have one rock, right, and you bust it in half, you got 2 rocks. It's still a rock. It's not half a rock. It's a whole rock. And they're both whole rocks now because they're composed of the same aggregates of rock and mineral fragments. It still is that one rock, even though it's busted in half now. And they're both equally still separate. But yet they're still part of the whole at the same time. It's like, look, on that Anishinaabe natural scientist, it's articulated in that video this very concept of the aggregate, that everything has a body of knowledge, and we can come from the body of that group of people. People ourselves have body. You can have a body of knowledge. You can, I don't know, man. Anyway, it just was a way. You look at a thing and you want to name it what its inner state is, what its function is, what its action is. That's how you describe things. You don't describe them as what you want them to be. You describe them as they are. And that's the most efficient way to live and learn as you're growing. And as you grow, you'll learn more advanced ways to classify things. Like when you see a baby's a human, right? But so is a 50-year-old. He's a human. He once was a baby. That baby, if it grows to its full extent of its years, will become that 50. But since they're at different stages of their life, they're perceiving the same, even though they're occupying the same place and time potentially, they're perceiving it differently based on how. When they see a thing, do they know it? Have they had time to become an expert and mature in being a human and living this learning process that we live this life? Anyway, a material or structure form. Okay, I did that one, didn't I? Yep. Okay. Here's some aggregate looking stuff like the gravel in your driveway is aggregate. The blacktop is aggregate. It's just, once it's laid down so long after the gravel settles in, it becomes one layer, even though it's made of millions of little individual components, but it still is interconnected as a whole. You know what I'm saying? And Same thing with concrete. Same thing with your drywall mud. It's all aggregate. All that stuff is aggregate. Adjective, formed or calculated by combination of many separate units or items total. Form or a group into a class or cluster. Butterflies aggregate in dense groups. Nice. I mean, I'm afraid to let this video roll too long in case it frickin' cuts the frickin' sound off me. That'll make me want to cry again. See, here's more aggregate. We'll look some up. Get a look. We'll get some eyes-on experience. I mean, you can just walk outside right now and grab some dirt. And you basically got some aggregate. Okay, so since I did not know what this word means, disparate. Disparate. Yep, there it is. Definition. What the heck? Nope. Not impact. What the heck? Disparate, essentially different, dissimilar, unlike, as desperate ideas or opinions. Right. Okay. I mean, I would like to listen to that video. Distinct in quality or character, dissimilar, unequal, different, as disparate personalities. Meaning, definition, explanation. Distinct in quality or character. Okay, there you go. That was the quick, straight, cut to the chase definition. Okay, wait, let me hear that one more time. Distinct in quality or character. Okay. Okay, that was my ad. And then now. Okay. I did not see fractal in there though on the aggregate. Well, I didn't see synonyms neither. Let me go back to aggregate. Okay. Let me go back to this real quick. Okay. Now, let me. Here we go. What does aggregate mean in legal terms? Ooh. I already clicked the button. See, look at all these definitions right there, dude. Definition of aggregate. Formed by a collection of units or particles into the body, mass or amount. Collectives, such as clustered in a dense mass or head. An aggregate, flower. See how I was talking about the body of wisdom? And now clustered into dense mass or head. Kind of like when a pimple forms. Formed from several separate ovaries of a single flower. Aggregate fruit. Okay. Composed of minerals of one or more kinds or mineral rock fragments. Taking all units as a whole. Aggregate as a verb. Aggregated, aggregating. To collect, gather into a mass or whole. To amount to a wholesome or total. Aggregate, entry 3 to 3. A mass body of units or parts somewhat loosely associated with one another. Froth is an aggregate of tiny bubbles. The total sum or amount, sum total, spent an aggregate of $10 million in advertising during the past 3 years. A rock composed of mineral crystals of one or more kinds of mineral rock fragments, or an aggregate rock. Several hard inert materials such as sand, gravel, or slag used for mixing with cementing material to form concrete, mortar, or plaster. That's funny. Me and my son used to walk down the train tracks and look for slag. It was pretty fun. It's shiny, like looks silvery, but it's just runoff from refinement process. A clustered mass of individual soil particles varied in shape, ranging in size from a microscopic granule to a small crumb, and considered the basic structural unit of soil. See, didn't I say walk out and grab some dirt and frickin' you got some aggregate, monetary aggregate. The aggregate considered as the whole collectively. Dividends for the year amounted to in aggregate $25 million. Let me see. Synonyms, that's it, right? Yeah. It's not antonyms, it's synonyms. Add, amount, come to, count, up to, number, sum, total. Full, sum, total, summation, total, whole. We added aggregate to our flock of Latin borrowings in the 15th century. It descends from the aggregare, is added to a Latin verb made up of the prefix ad, which means to, and which usually changed to ag before a G, and greg or grex, meaning flock. Greg also gave us congregate, like congregation, gregarious, and segregate. Aggregate. See, so aggregate is an integrated society, but segregate is a broken up and separated society. It is commonly employed when the phrase in the aggregate means considered as a whole, as in the sense in aggregate the students' various achievements were sufficiently impressive to merit scholarship. Aggregate also has some special senses, for example, used for a mass of minerals formed into a rock, and for materials such as sand or gravel used to concrete, mortar, or plaster. Nice. So yeah, it's probably to do with morte. Morte means mortar, and it also means murder or death in, I think, Latin or Spanish. And it comes from the same thing, mortar. And they used to use bodies in the mortar back in the day. It's even in the Bible. It says one of these kings burned up one of his enemies and used his bones for lime to build his wall. And it said he was cursed for that, and the area was cursed. Anyway, let me see here. Yep, devil's in the details, as they would say. And he speaks Latin fluently. Okay, here we go. We're gonna look up particles. Particles, a minute portion of matter, tiny particles of dust. Grammar, any of the class of words such as in, up, off, over, used with verbs to make phrasal verbs. Nice. Okay. Minute quantity or fragment, relatively small or smallest discrete portion or amount of something. Archaic, a clause or article of a composition or document. Any basic units of matter and energy, such as molecule, atom, proton, electron, or photon. A unit of speech expressing some general aspects of meaning or some connective limiting relation, and including articles, most presuppositions and conjunctions, and some injections and adverbs. The particle up has been a perfective meaning in phrases such as beat up and cut up. A small Eucharistic wafer, distributed to the omen cataholic layman at that These dudes are all over everything. Ace, bit, crumb, dab, dram, driblet, glimmer, hint, lick, little, mite, nip, ounce, peanuts, ray, scintilla, scruple, shade, shadow, shred, skosh, smack, smell, smidgen, smidgen or smidge, snap, soupcon, spark, spatter, speck, splash, spot, sprinkle, strain, streak, suspicion, tad, touch, trace. I mean, what the... I don't know how all those necessarily connect, but interesting. There is not a particle of evidence to support their claim. There is not a particle of truth in what he said. I like it. You ain't got a particle of man fortitude. You know what I'm talking about, buddy? Okay. So, I think that was sufficient for now. In that particular death for the moment. Okay, we're going to go to... I like to use this word right here. Frag. As a shorthand for fragment. A small part broken off or separated off something. Small fragments of pottery, glass, and tiles. I probably got some of that laying out in the backyard right now. Verb, break or to cause to break into fragments. His followers fragmented into sects. Look, break up. I want to break up with your shenanigans, aight? First step, take your power back, man. Freaking look. Start to teach yourself. Definition of fragment. A part broken off, detached, or incomplete. A dish lay in fragments on the floor. Fragment verb. Fragmented, fragmenting, fragments. Definition of fragment. Intrasensitive verb, to fall to pieces. Transitive verb, to break up or apart into fragments. Yeah, we are definitely, our freedoms are certainly fragmented right now. And synonyms for fragment: bit, fraction, piece, scrap. Synonyms: verb, break up, bust, disintegrate, dismember, disrupt, fracture. Here's fracture, fractal, rive. Part, portion, piece, member, division, section, segment, fragment. Means something less than the whole. Part is a general term appropriate when indefiniteness is required. They ran only part of the way. Portion implies assigned or allotted part. Cut pie into 6 portions. Piece applies to a separate or detached part of the whole. A puzzle with 500 pieces, a member suggests one of the functional unit composing of a body. A structural member division applies into a larger diversified part. The manufacturing division of the company section applied to a relatively small or uniform part. And entertainment section of the newspaper segment applies to a part separated and marked out, or as if by natural lines of cleavage. Ooh, I like that word right there, cleavage. The retirement segment of the population fragment applies to the part produced by or as if breaking off. I'm gonna break you off. You know what I'm talking about? Only a fragment of the play still exists. Examples of fragments in a sentence. The dish lay in fragments on the floor, and I could only hear fragments of their conversation. I like to use the word fragments as in microparticles. You do get trace amounts of plants from smelling them burning. So it's like, look, you burn that sage, you're going to take in micronutrients out of it. You know what I'm saying? It's same thing like you put mullion inside the steam and inhale it. The steam, it clears your lungs out. Look, it's just when I put the plant in the water, it's leaching out the chemicals, and then it's breaking it down into millions of tiny particles, little fragments, and then it's small enough that I can inhale them. Anyway. And I find it quite a pleasant experience. The dish laying fragments on the floor. I could only hear fragments of their conversation while I was ear hustling. uh, anyway, I'm gonna bake it up real quick. I can just use it. I'm gonna bake it up. Let me see. If I'm not mistaken, I thought I seen it say. See this? When I had it on frag, I seen something I thought. Oh, it changed. Fragile. Fragment. That's like fragile. It means it's likely to break into fragments. I mean, this fragments. Okay. So, and like fractal is got the first three letters. They're very similar. Okay, now this one. Shit. So in aggregate, in as far as it's a composition of multiple elements, crystals, and minerals. It said a part or aspect of something abstract, especially one that is essential or characteristic. The death had all the elements of a great tabloid story. Component, each of more than 100 substances that cannot be chemically inconverted or broken down into simpler substances are the primary constituents of matter. Each element is distinguished by its atomic number, i.e., and the number of protons and nuclei of its atoms. Okay. Chemical element. In chemistry, an element is a pure substance which cannot be broken down by chemical means, consisting of atoms which have identical numbers of protons and their atomic nuclei. The number of the protons in the nucleus is defining property of an element and is referred to as the atomic number. Ooh, look at these interesting looking fellers. Ionization energy. Emission spectrum. Nice. Here's some examples. Carbon, the one that they hate, that we're all made of. They want to get rid of carbon. Lead, like in the water there, and freaking and that oxygen that we used to be nice before they started chemtrailing us. Okay, I'll look at one more real quick. I mean, this is taking a lot of time. I'm already up to like probably 40 minutes. And I'm afraid I don't want these freaking sound to get cut off. Oh man, there's a sound freaking button right there. I just seen. Maybe a component or constituent of a whole or one of the parts which into the whole may be resolved by an analysis. Bricks and mortar are elements of every masonry wall. Remember how I just talked about that a minute ago? Morte and the aggregate comes from the plaster mortar and what's the other one? Anyway, morte. Chemistry, one class of substances that cannot be separated into simpler substances by chemical means. A natural habitat, sphere of activity, environment, etc. To be in one's element. Water is the element of a fish. Elements, atmospheric agencies or forces, weather, a ruddy complexion from exposure to the elements. The rudimentary principles of an art, science, etc. The elements of grammar. The bread and wine of the Eucharist service. I mean, so look, particle and element is both to do with that. Weird. Any group of people singled out within a larger group by identical behavior patterns, common interests, ethnic similarities, etc. He worried that the protest rally would attract radical element. One of the substances, usually earth, air, water, fire, formerly regarded as constituting the material universe. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do the last one, so I don't run out of time. Let's see. There's a lot of other words I could look up, man. What is it? Fractal? Fractile. Or is it fractal? A fractal is a cut-off point for a certain fraction of a sample. Visually turns fractile as the point, the probability density curve, so the area under the curve between the point and the origin equal to specific fraction. Fractile. Okay, where is it? Fract. Yeah, there we go. A curve or geometric figure, each part which has the same statistic character whole. Fractals are useful in modeling structures. That's the one I was looking for there. And fractals are useful in modeling structures such as eroded coastlines or snowflakes. Hey, every wave is a particle, and every particle is a wave and a particle. It's like interesting. In which similar patterns recur at progressively smaller scales, and in describing partially random or chaotic phenomena such as crystal growth, fluid turbulence, and galaxy formation, relating to or of the nature of fractal or fractals, fractal geometry. And that's even what I was saying about when you break a rock in half, they're both rocks. And it's like there's still that one rock, but they're also separate now. And if you broke those all in half, it's the same. Even though now you have 4 pieces, and then you bust each one of those into 2. Now you have freaking 8. But it's still that one rock, but they're also each now become separately rocks of the same structure. Same thing with the particles breaking down the micronutrients in the plants when you inhale the steam or burn them and smell them. So I'm not talking about witchcraft. I'm not talking about getting high. I'm talking about other stuff. So don't try to insinuate stuff like that. In mathematics, a fractal is a self-similar subset of Euclidean space whose fractal dimension strictly exceeds its topological dimension. Fractals appear in the same time at different levels as illustrated in successive magnification of the Mandelbrot set. So fractal is even talking about how crystals form, and crystals are inside of the definition of particles and aggregates as well. In various extremely irregular curves of shapes with any suitably chosen part or similar in shape given to a larger or smaller part when magnified or reduced to the same size. Okay, man. Anyway, I'm gonna cut this bait because I think I captured enough stuff for the moment, and don't want to push it too far in case they cut the freaking sound on me, and I have to do this again, which I'll be crying. I'll do it in tears. But until next time, much love. Take care. See you later.